Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On this show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, franchising, and more. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the DealQuest podcast. Let's get started. Welcome, DealQuest listeners. Corey Kupfer here with another solo cast. I want to talk about a potential unwinding deal that's been in the press lately, at least at the time I'm recording this. It may come out a little later and maybe there'll be some more news on it. But as of now, when I'm recording this in early August, there's been some reporting, mainly over the last several weeks, about Kraft Heinz eyeing a major split, a potential unwind. They're calling it unwinding of the 2015 merger. I want to talk about that for a little bit. But it's interesting because it's reported as a merger that did not work. So for those of you, and that they may be unwinding it at this point. Now, again, there's no definitive announcement, but this is what a number of folks have picked up from the scuttlebutt, so to speak, on what there are at least discussions about doing. Just to give some background, so in 2015, Kraft Foods and H.J. Heinz had a merger, and it was backed by Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway, $45 billion. And we all know that Berkshire Hathaway's track record is pretty darn good, but this is one that did not work out for them as an investment. And along with Berkshire Hathaway was a Brazilian-based group. They were a very aggressive acquirer and cost cutter of putting, various companies together and creating value. And they had done that in the beverage, I think it was in the beer industry and a couple other situations. So they came in at the time with Berkshire Hathaway, and there was this thinking, we're going to create this phenomenal, huge company combining these two great brands. And it hasn't turned out that way. So 10 years later, meaning 2025 now, the market value has collapsed by 2/3 as per Reuters. And this is at a time when the market generally doubled, right? So this company lost 2/3 of its value at a time when the general market went up twofold. What they're talking about now is at least, speculation reporting that they're going to quote unquote undo the merger and split up the company in two companies, although, they've declined to comment, meaning the company. So has not been confirmed. But that the spinoff would divide up basically two distinct companies. One would be the condiment, Heinz, and cream cheese. So like, for example, Heinz ketchup, Philadelphia cream cheese. And Philadelphia cream cheese was a brand that they actually bought after the merger, from what I remember. That sort of condiment and sauces business would be in one company. And then in the other company would be the legacy grocery brands, which have been have flatter sales, and those have been seen as a drag on the more profitable condiment portion. Now, there is sort of a model for this that was done successfully, which was there was a breakup of Kellogg into separate businesses, and I forget what year that was. They did that, and then Ferrero and Mars swooped in for major acquisitions, and it turned out that breakup increased the value of both parts of Kraft that were broken up and they were acquired, and it turned out to be a good move. But there are some of the experts are questioning whether Kraft Heinz will be able to be as successful, mainly because the brands aren't seen, especially in the legacy non-sauce and condiment side, are seen as not as strong. So here's an interesting part, and I want to delve into this a little more, but essentially a look at it whether, again, a lot of the reporting is as a deal that didn't work out, and that's going to unwind, and it was a bad deal, right? And I'm not saying, listen, obviously, when you combine two companies, the market value goes down 2/3 over a 10-year period. That is not a success. But it's more interesting to look at some of the factors. So first of all, and also the spinoff, The way they're talking about it, some of these other brands like Philadelphia they acquired subsequently, if there is an unwind, it probably is not going to be the exact unwind, meaning like, oh, what were the Kraft brands and the Heinz brands are going to split. It's going to be some sort of split along more type of product lines, right? Maybe it'll parallel to a large degree when it come together, but it's not going to be exact. So it's not truly a total unwind. It's just a new split up, which may parallel decently when it come together in the first place. But more importantly than that is the conversation of is the main story here that this is a failed deal, or are there other factors? Meaning that would these companies also have had similar issues and headwinds on their own? And did the deal make it any better or worse or the same? And here's the interesting part. The brands that are having trouble, like I said, are the slower growing grocery brands. They include things like Velveeta cheese, Oscar Mayer meats, Maxwell House coffee. And, I don't know about you, but first of all, those brands seem to me to feel kind of old and stale. I'm not a food branding expert, marketing expert, but they sort of feel that way to me. And even more importantly, and what's pointed out in some of the reporting, is that a lot of the brands that are in that end of what would be one half of the business or one of the companies that would be split off, the slower growing grocery brand, a lot of them have been adversely affected by the trends to move away from processed food, from packaged processed food containing the types of ingredients that a lot of these products have. And they're just off trend. The way the market's moving is people want fresher ingredients. And the interesting part is that that would be true whether these companies merged or didn't merge, right? It's just that to bring in a lot more of these products that became a drag is problematic. But I mean, part of the question is, should somebody have seen that when this deal was done 10 years ago? Maybe. I mean, there are definitely people who are more expert than I am in terms of whether they were folks. I'm aware that 10 years ago, they were certainly already talking a movement towards organic, more natural foods, things like that. But and keep in mind, these companies are not only in the US, they're international. So whether across the world, across all of their markets, they should have anticipated that this would be a trend that would significantly adversely affect these kind of products is a question. But whether they combined or not, this would have been a problem. And maybe, you could say maybe the story more is the lack of, the reason, like it wasn't the fact that it was a merger that caused the problem, it was the fact that the executives, leaders at these brands did not change quick enough with the times. We've seen that over and over and over again in various industries where people fall behind the trend, or it's easy to think about in fashion, which could happen season to season, or the tech, right? BlackBerry, for example, or Blockbuster. Is this just another example of that? And was this poor management? And yes, does that trigger what can be seen as a failed merger? But is that now they do talk about the fact that some of the cost savings and things that they wanted to do that the Brazilian investor was successfully did in other places didn't pan out as well. So that is more directly related to anticipated merger benefits that didn't come about. And one of these articles talks about the unraveling, and they talk about when deal makers fail to anticipate the speed and magnitude and change of the American food culture, right? And I think that's probably the biggest fact here. Now, interestingly, even back in 2019, Warren Buffett publicly admitted that he was wrong about Kraft Heinz, and he's not, again, not wrong about much. And he also said that they overpaid for Kraft. So that is certainly can be criticized as, looked at as a deal failure if you overpay for a company. And they also cite, in terms of this trend to consuming fewer packaged goods and processed goods and skepticism towards these highly processed brands, for example, Kraft macaroni and cheese, they also cite the more recent rise of weight loss drugs, which only accelerated this trend, like the Ozempics, things like that, and the impact of those things. This has been going bad for a while. I mean, in February of 2019, Kraft Heinz shocked investors by announcing a record $15.4 billion write-down of its brands. That's obviously a huge deal. There was an investigation into their accounting practices. They admitted overstating revenue by about $208 million, and the shares plunged 27%. So listen, they've had other problems along the way, in addition to just being off trend and maybe overvaluing the deal in the first place. But the interesting thing from the Buffett Berkshire Hathaway side is, one of the things they've been great at is actually investing long term in classic brands that actually maintain their value over time. That's a part of the investment thesis at Berkshire Hathaway. but this is one that they just called wrong. And one of the things, the combination of this aggressive cost cutting, which was the model for 3G, the Brazilian company, they tied together, which makes sense to me, which is that when you aggressively cost cut, your new product development, your R&D, your market research budgets go down. So there could definitely have been a tie towards their inability or lack of evolution of these products and not keeping up with the trends by the fact that this was a merger and a lot of costs were taken out of it, and that certainly is a failure of the deal philosophy. To the extent that that's true, and it seems logical to me. Yeah, so that's what they're looking at in terms of the breakup. I mean, listen, when your market value goes down from 96 billion to 33 billion over 10 years, that's pretty bad. So the interesting part is 3G, the Brazilian investor, got out in 2023. Berkshire Hathaway has stepped back from active involvement in the company, and they're anticipated to probably, get out here too. So it'll be interesting to watch to see what happens, not only whether the split up or the spinoff happens, but then what happens with it after that, right? I mean, just because they split up the companies doesn't mean that, it'll be net positive. You would hope it would. I mean, but when you have an underperforming side and a stronger side and you split them up, well, sure, the underperforming side is no longer a drag on the stronger side's value. So that company should go up in share price, right, in value. But you would think that there'd be a corresponding drop on the other side from the company that was less performing. But really what happens there is whether now that company becomes, and it's, like, for example, in the Kellogg case, there were acquisitions that came out of their spinoff. And that's usually the hope, is to say, hey, maybe there is a buyer out there, or maybe when we spin it off, we can have new management or new investment, even if it's not a full buyout, that will breathe new life into those brands, help them innovate, help them evolve their products, help them come out with new products, help them market their existing products, whatever it is, in a way that will help that company come back and improve its market value. It's always interesting to see, first of all, whether all these talks of, these rumors happen. Usually they don't come out of the blue. I wouldn't be surprised, based upon everything I've heard, if there weren't at least discussions, but that doesn't mean it'll happen. And then if it does happen, what the results are and who else gets involved on an investment or purchase side. But listen, there are some cautionary tales, some lessons here. And certainly one of them is that when you cost cut, which is often one of the advantages of combining companies, you better watch what you cost cut. And if it's something that is going to prevent you from evolving and developing new products, or, keeping up with the trends where your existing product line is going to become less desirable, then those cost-cutting measures are going to be significantly adverse to the success of the company. And that, I think, is definitely a piece of what happened here. I think it's an interesting case study. It'll be an interesting case study to follow along with. If the deal does happen, I might do a follow-up solo cast on it at some point. So we'll see what happens there. And that is it for this solo cast this week. Next few weeks, look out for some great interviews with guests. And I will be back in 4 episodes with another solo cast. Take care, DealQuest community.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of DealQuest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. If you are interested in finding out more about my law firm, the services we provide to entrepreneurial and growing companies across industries all over the country, and my partner Brian Megan and I, and my amazing team, just head over to kupferlaw.com. That's kupferlaw.com. And if you want to follow more of my content, head over to my LinkedIn page, where I post regularly. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your DealQuest will bring.